So, it's been a couple days since The Hardest Thing has released. It still feels really surreal that Amphibia is over. So, I already made a video about The Hardest Thing if you haven't seen it. It was, I was pretty emotional. And I've been kind of broken the last couple of days. I'm not even joking. Ending of a show has never hit me that hard before. I'd mentioned that I'd never cried to any cartoon ever. It really does take a lot for me to cry with a show. And Amphibia just for the record, the point of this video is sort of a follow-up, but it's more just what I'm feeling. I just want to make this video because I'm just feeling a lot of different things right now. And I just want to talk how I've been feeling just the last couple of days. So there's not going to be a lot of structure or even really a point to this video. It's more of just a rant because I just think this ending was perfect. It was so good. Matt Brawley did say that this episode of Amphibia is his favorite, and I can see why. It's so easy to see why. I've rewatched it 6 times. I cried every time. I even tried my best not to cry. I couldn't. I've cried every time. I do feel that as more time goes on, I'll be able to watch it without crying because I've just seen it so many times. Maybe. You ever feel that? Where after some distance from something, you don't feel as attached to it, maybe? Or as emotionally attached. So I feel never again will I feel how I feel right now about Amphibia. You ever get that feeling? Where the second a show that you love has ended, or the second you finish a game, or a movie, or something, at the time something, once it's ended, it's at that point where it is at the peak of its feeling special moment, I guess. That's not to say that Amphibia will never feel special or this emotional to me again. It's that this is the peak of that emotion, where it'll still feel extremely special to me. Again, maybe it is recency bias, but right now, Amphibia is my favorite cartoon. It is. I always just say Last Airbender with so much confidence, but now I can't say that anymore. It's Amphibia, 100%. Again, ask me again in 6 months, I might have a different answer. I don't think I will, though. I really don't think I will. It's so good. Can we even talk about just the name of The Hardest Thing? It's so perfect. It's so perfect. It has so many different meanings. The hardest thing. Not only is the hardest thing to face the final boss, but it's the hardest thing for Anne to take the powers and sacrifice herself. That's very difficult to do. It's the hardest thing for Anders to confront the core. It's the hardest thing for all these characters to say goodbye to each other. It's the hardest thing to let something go. And that is, I think the hardest thing of all things is, why am I getting emotional now again? Oh my gosh. Is letting something go. And letting Amphibia go. To an extent, letting it go. I'm always going to love the show. I'm going to rewatch it again probably in a couple weeks. I've already rewatched a couple episodes, mostly just The Hardest Thing. It just feels so surreal. I went back and watched All In, and I was how naive I was. How naive. I remember the last week leading up to the end of the show, I was man, I had thousands of thoughts and theories going through my head. And a decent amount of them came true, but there's so many things that I just couldn't expect to feel. I remember I predicted the Anne and Sasha and Marcy growing apart. I did get that. And it's another one of the hardest things is that you don't want to see them grow apart, right? You want to see them be best friends forever. You want to see that. It's you want to see Marcy maybe convince her parents to not move away, or even if they do, maybe the girls every once in a while they have a little hangout and you get to see that. But no, they did talk, but just not often. And I think that's why it's so good. It's why it's so good. It's why it's the hardest thing, because it's you want it so bad, but it goes against the message of the show, and it goes against what really happens in life. because it made me think a lot about myself. A lot. Like, I literally been having, like, existential dread and, like, midlife crises because of this ending. It's that bad. Like, I can't... I'm literally broken. I say that with no... You know, like, people will say, oh, I'm broken a lot. But when I say I'm broken, I'm literally, like, questioning my entire life because of this show. Like, without going into too much detail, I was, like, very much, when I got out of my senior year of high school, confused about what I wanted to do with my life. And even now, I still am extremely confused. And I think my biggest thing was I always wanted to do YouTube. But now I almost want to, like, maybe go into college and see if I can create my own show. And, like, I think about that and I'm like, because I'd love to be in a position where I could share a story and give people this exact same feeling. And it almost makes you want to be like, oh, I wish this happened to me, like, several years ago when I was in senior year and I could make that decision then. But now I just feel like I've been wasting my time. Like, I don't feel like I have been, but almost, it's just like that eerie feeling. It's like, man, what have I been doing these last few years on YouTube? I mean, I've gotten a bigger audience in these last few weeks while covering Amphibia in the Owl House. But before this, I was doing Let's Plays for 3 years. And I loved it, don't get me wrong, and I learned a decent amount while making those videos. But then I look back and I'm like, 3 years of Let's Plays. And I only got like 1,000 subscribers, and it's like, I love making them, but there's a part of me that wonders, was that just like a waste of time? What did I really gain more as a person from doing that? Like, it was fun, and I don't fully regret it, but I almost wonder, like, what else could I have done with that time? I don't know, it's freaky. It's freaky. This show has me questioning my life, and it's kind of scary. Like, I'm genuinely thinking about maybe going into college again and learning animation. I'm not even like a talented artist or anything. I'm just like, okay. I just do like little doodles for fun. I'm not like good. I don't really know how to like draw human proportions well or anything. Like, I usually need like references when I look at things. I know like a lot of artists do, but it's like I can't really draw a lot of stuff freehand where it looks well. And even if I did want to create something of my own one day, I'm so worried like how if I'll even be able to do something that could even come close to what Amphibia was or how it made me feel. Because anytime I feel like I have an idea, I'm like, oh, this show will always do it better. It's just been making me think a lot just about myself. A lot about the show too, but just like a lot about myself and what I want to do in my future. It's crazy. That's probably enough of that. That's probably a bit too deep, but it's just like, dang, dude. This show really has me thinking a lot. But besides the life-regretting potential decisions or anything, it also just makes me want to become the best version of myself that I can be. And like, there's not really any particulars with that, but it's just like seeing these characters do end up doing things that fit them and what they want. I just think that's so cool, where it's like Anne became a herpetologist, Sasha became like a therapist, and Marcy became like a web designer, or like a web cartoon designer. And it's just like, yeah, that's what these characters would do. That fits these characters. Where I thought it was like a really nice thing where Marcy, instead of using her smarts, she did something that she loved. I thought that was so cool. Where the freaking principal in All In was like, Marcy's probably going to solve world hunger. And it's like, no, she didn't do that. Could she have? I don't know. I mean, Marcy's pretty smart, but she decided to do what she loved. And I just think that's so cool. It really is just like a good message toward everybody. There's so many messages here at the end. I was so surprised, but like, I also knew that they would pull it off. Because when I first saw like All In being like 48 minutes and then The Hardest Thing being 29, I remember that I was confident that the show would like have like its perfect ending, but this is just on a whole nother level. I had this video that I released like 3 weeks ago that was called Amphibia's Ending Will Go Beyond Perfection, and it has the thumbnail of We Are Not Ready. That video is so accurate, or at least that title and thumbnail. I can't remember every last thing that I said in it. I think I did say like a lot of things where I predicted what would happen near the end, and like some of them happened, but that really is it. You know, I think when I was making it, I was just like, all right, what's a really eye-catching title and thumbnail, and that was pretty good. But like it's just literally true. It's so true. It went beyond perfection for me. There are some people that have some problems with it, and I think there is like a continuity error where like they say it's been 10 years since the frog vasion, but they also say it's Anne's birthday, and that clearly it wasn't Anne's birthday in All In. Like, she was still 13 years old in The Hardest Thing, so like that's a bit of a continuity error unless I missed something there. But like besides like any really small things, it was just so perfect. And I also just like want to talk about Sprig as well. So when I first watched Amphibia, I think I mentioned I got into the show around October of last year, so I was a pretty late addition to the show. My first experience was actually, I think it was in season 2, in the Hopping Mall episode where Sprig talks about, you know, can you miss somebody who was never really there? That was the first clip I've ever actually seen of the show. That was my first exposure to the show, and that was right when it came out. And I remember I just watched the clip, and then I think I watched a few more clips of the show, and I was like, okay, this seems fun, but I'm not gonna watch it right now. I was just like, I think I was too busy. I was probably like busy doing like a let's play of a game, and I was like, okay, I can't get into this show right now. I'll save it for later. Big mistake. I should have got into it right then and there. Like, I regret not getting into the show sooner. I do, because I had that opportunity then, but I didn't take it. And then I started watching the Owl House last year sometime around, I think like in September, and then after I finished watching the Owl House, I was like, okay, we'll give the Frog show a try. And I'll be honest with you, I thought it was just mediocre in the start, because I just didn't like Anne. I thought like the only character that I thought was like okay was Hot Pop, but that changed quick. It like the comedy really drew me in. The characters were charming and fun, and like it only took like, I think like on episode 5 I was like, yeah, this is fun. I think it was like the first 2 episodes just had a bad first impression for me, probably because I was really close-minded, where I had just like finished watching the Owl House up to, I think it was Eclipse Lake? I forget. Up to a certain point. And I was looking for something, like whenever you watch a show, I'm just like, you want more of that show, so you want to find something that's like exactly like that, right? Whereas right now, I'm trying to like fill in the holes with Amphibia, where I've started watching Over the Garden Wall. I have seen that show, and it's really good. I'm going to actually review that next. I know I did like have a little poll. Which show do you want me to talk about next after Amphibia? And you guys voted Infinity Train, but because Over the Garden Wall is so short, I'll actually do that one first, then I'll do Infinity Train, because Over the Garden Wall is literally like an hour and a half, where Infinity Train is like 4 seasons, so I haven't even seen season 4 yet. I've only seen the first 3 seasons. But anyway, it's just like, I was watching Over the Garden Wall, and I kept thinking like, haha, there's a frog in it, Amphibia moment. It's just like, it's so hard to watch another show after finishing another one, and just like wanting the exact same thing from it, because all shows are different, and they shouldn't be treated as such. So I was like really bad, and I didn't really give Amphibia a chance when I first started watching it. But like, I'm so glad that I like kept it up, because it really deserves more love. It really does. Like, I see like just my own views when I compare like the views of Owl House videos versus Amphibia, and like my personal opinion, but I much prefer, not much, I love the Owl House, but I like talk about, let's say like Owl House is like S tier, Amphibia is like S+++ tier for me. It's like, it's godlike. It's like on another level. It's just so good. Where like Owl House is just like, it's amazing, but I just like Amphibia better. Again, just my personal opinion. But it almost makes me sad to see like it doesn't get as much love as the Owl House does, because it's like, it's just so good. Sorry, again, I know I'm just kind of going on a rant here. There's no real point to this video. I'm just talking about Amphibia. I just need to like, I need to just dump all these thoughts out without any real continuity or anything. Sort of like my first Darcy video. That was the first video on this channel where I just talked about how much I love Darcy. And I'm so glad that I did, because other people seem to have liked it. I remember like, I was expecting to not get like any views on any of these videos. I'm pretty sure I still would have done the exact same thing that I would have done. But when I got more views, I was like, wow, that was really cool. People actually enjoyed what I'm talking about. And of course it is, because these shows are in their final arcs and they're extremely popular. So like, that's another reason why. And I'm also expecting like a massive tank in viewership after this. Like, I'm expecting after the Owl House season 2 ends, like that my viewership will probably go down by like 90%, because like these shows were just coming out and everyone, they were like super hot topics. And now that there's no like show, or at least a show that's like extremely hot topic like Owl House Amphibia that I'm like super into, at least right now, you know, my viewership is going to tank, which like I'm okay with that. I'm expecting it, so I'm trying to like start looking into other things to kind of keep the longevity, such as like looking at Infinity Train, Over the Garden Wall. You want to talk about Hilda too, that show's so good. Just so many shows I want to talk about as well. But just back to Amphibia again. I think I was talking about how I was worried, not really worried, but just like talking about the finale. I knew it was going to be perfect, in my opinion. Like, it was going to be perfect, but this really did just exceed perfection, because I saw that 29 minutes and I was like, they're gonna do it. They're gonna do it. They're gonna stick the landing so hard, but they sticked it like harder than I thought they would. Whereas like after True Colors, I fell in love with the show even more, but it wasn't like life changing. It was just like, oh man, this show's so cool. I love it. It's so great. I can't wait to see more. I think about the show all the time now. But no, the finale is now making me question my entire life and decisions. And it's scary. It's really scary. And I keep repeating to myself over and over, like, it's just the hardest thing. And it makes you wonder, like, maybe if I want to make a choice that changes my life a lot, that could also be considered the hardest thing. The fact that the ending and the characters are, like, nearly the exact same age that I am now. So, like, these characters have their lives together where they're all doing what they love. And it makes me question if I am doing what I love. Because I love talking about cartoons, and I love doing Let's Plays, and I love doing YouTube content. And I'm just concerned that, especially since YouTube doesn't really feel like a life job, where it feels like you got about 10 years, 15 years, like some people, maybe for some people they'll go on a lot longer, but it seems like the majority of YouTubers will do YouTube, like really popular ones, like ones with like millions of subscribers. It feels like a lot of them, at least the ones that I have seen, they'll stick around for like 10 to 15 years, and then they'll like move on with their lives. And like that just makes sense, because I almost want to sort of do the same thing, because I don't want to do YouTube my whole life. There's obviously other things out there that I can do. And I've just been thinking about the longevity. I'm a very much long planner, if you haven't noticed. Again, when I was talking about how I'm very confused with my life, it's because I'm interested in so many different things. And I could see my life going in so many different directions. And the main reason why I did YouTube in the first place was because YouTube is everything that you make it is. Except, because at YouTube you can do almost anything. You can do like almost any genre, any sort of field of work, and you can make it work on YouTube if you do it right. But like, as I've come to realize, a lot of niches are more popular on YouTube, where back in the day on YouTube, you could just be yourself and then just upload whatever you wanted and people would come to you for you. But nowadays, a lot of the content is more niche, and it's really hard to grow yourself an audience that cares more about you than it does your content. Like, again, for example, look at the difference of views between Owl House and Amphibia videos. And it makes you wonder how many people are coming to this content for my review of it, as opposed to watching Guy on Internet Reviews Owl House / Amphibia. And I'm kind of going to sort of experiment with that when it comes to like Over the Garden Wall and, you know, other cartoons, and just sort of take a look at the difference in viewership and sort of just slowly make my decisions for there. Because I was like thinking, if I do return to college, it would be in, I wouldn't even be able to return to college properly until fall of 2023, which is a long time from now. It was a very long time from now. And then I would be in college for 4 years. So that would be 2027 when I graduate. And then like after 2027, I would enter the workforce. And then like, let's say like another 4 to 5 years, if I work really hard. You know, if I were to get like super lucky, you could get like, I could finally create my own cartoon. So it's like, if I were to go to school next year in like 2031 or something, would be like, seems like the average time. If I were to like, you know, get as lucky as these series creators did, then I'd be able to create my own series when I'm like 30 years old. And I'd be like, that'd be awesome. At like 30 years old, I could create my own series. Like, that'd be insane. But then like, to do that, how much YouTube would I have to sacrifice? Because I'm a very much person where I'm just like, I want to do everything. I want to do everything. I want to just like want to do all these different things, which is again why I did YouTube, because like I want to do everything now. But like Amphibia has made me question that so hard, because I do love YouTube and I don't want to give it up ever. But it makes you wonder, like, if I do decide to like return to college someday, it's going to be really hard for me to do both. Or like I wouldn't be able to do this as often, and that makes me sad. But then I also think like if I continue with YouTube and I get too far into it, will I never be able to do anything else? And that kind of terrifies me, because these are the kind of decisions I should have thought about a long time ago, and I did, but I never thought about them this genuinely until like Amphibia sort of opened my eyes to them. Or at least I did, but I wasn't like in a good spot in my life where I could think about them properly, I guess. I'm probably not doing the best job of explaining this, but I'm just trying to just get this off my chest, where Amphibia has just... It messed me up hard. It really did. And I'm not about to just be like, oh, after I saw the ending of this cartoon, it now changed my entire life. On a dime. No. I'm going to take a lot of time to think about this, of course. But it's just like, the ending has truly inspired me. If nothing else, like if I don't end up doing a lot of the stuff that I said, if nothing else, just to be the best version of myself that I can be. And I just think that's so cool. How of all things that a cartoon can do that. And I just feel that a lot of people, at least specifically a lot of people I know IRL, probably wouldn't ever be this impacted by like a silly little frog cartoon. Like I remember I tried to even explain to some of my family members or friends that like, hey, it's really interesting, you should check it out. And even when some of my friends do, they don't get it. You know what I mean? Where it's like, oh, they're like, that was cool. And I'm just like, that's it? That's all you have to say? That was cool? It hasn't changed your life? It hasn't made you question all your decisions of your life leading up to this very point? It hasn't made you want to become the best person you can be? Do you not even feel the ounce of it inspired? And they're like, yeah, I just thought it was good. I thought it was good. It was a good show. And like, yeah, that's like a lot of people think, but like, and a lot of it is probably also what you put into the show you get out. I was wondering a lot, because I was starting to talk about Amphibia in the Owl House, and once I started doing YouTube content on it, because I'm doing YouTube content, and that's sort of like, not really my job, but I do get paid for this now because I have monetization or anything, but like, because of me talking about it so often, it's in my brain so much more often than if I were to not make YouTube videos on it. It'd be in there a lot, but not nearly this much. And I was wondering, is that the reason I cried? Is that the reason I feel so emotionally attached? Is because I put in so much into Amphibia? And I think that's part of it. I think that is part of it. I think the more you put in to something, the more you're going to get out of it. Which is like, I think it's a very true thing that people will say to you. And I think that's exactly what happened to me in Amphibia, because I put everything into the show, like the last couple of months. I put all my mentality toward this show. I was constantly thinking, like you heard me in my Darcy brain rot, I was constantly thinking about Darcy, constantly thinking about the Calamity trio, constantly thinking about the amphibians in their world and what the messages of this show are leaving behind, and the constant theories and the constant just everything about Amphibia overflowing. Like I was talking about Owl House 2, and Owl House does take up a good chunk of my brain, but we're talking like 20% of is just like regular standard life things. Owl House is like 10%, and the other 70% of my life is just thoughts of Amphibia. That's it. It's crazy. Like I woke up today and I was just like, man, the hardest thing is such a good episode. And I did some other stuff, and I keep thinking about Amphibia. And that's been my life the last 2 months, is I'm just constantly thinking about Amphibia. I even mentioned that I'm trying to move out soon with some friends. We've been trying to like look at apartments and houses and stuff, and just looking for stuff like that, trying to move out. And it's been really hard to like focus on that. It's dumb. It's really dumb, where this show has just like, again, I mentioned in other videos where the show has taken over my life, and now it just feels like it is changing my life more than it is just taking it over. It really makes you wonder if I can make other people feel the same way. Like, it almost just really makes me wish, like, oh, when I was 18, what if I just did go to animation school? It'd be like right around now I'd be graduating from animation school. Like, if I did go to school, I would probably be graduating like later this year or maybe like next year. And that's just like, wow. Had I had known that I wanted to potentially do this like 5 years ago, where would my life be now? It's weird. It's like I almost wish Amphibia happened earlier in my life because it's been such a positive influence on me. It really has. And again, maybe a lot of my emotions are just running high. And like when I think about just like, oh, if I were to want to go to like animation college and, you know, maybe potentially one day run my own show, I think I just look at myself now and I'm like, impossible. Literally impossible. That'd be way too difficult. That'd be the hardest thing for me to do. And I'm just like, ooh, the hardest thing, huh? Well, if these characters confront their hardest things, then why couldn't I? And that's what I'm talking about. It's like, it makes you want to it makes me want to improve myself. And I think that's just so cool. I want to know if anyone else is feeling like this as well. Maybe not to this degree, but like, does anyone else just feel this like overwhelming inspiration for just improving yourself or the things around you, or just an overall feeling of this, how special this show is to you? I don't know. I'm curious to hear your thoughts. I could probably go on for hours about the show. Maybe one day I will. I might just like, I thought about just like one day, just like sitting down and be like, okay, I'm going to talk about Amphibia for 3 hours as like a podcast or something. And like, that's it. And I just keep talking about it, like no matter what. And I just don't stop, where I finally like have a play. That's sort of, I guess this is like a mini version of that, but it's just like, I want to talk about Amphibia. That's it. I just want to talk about Amphibia, dude. It's so good. That ending. The last scene. Oh my gosh. I think I was like, didn't I say I was going to talk about Sprig too? I didn't even talk about Sprig. Yeah, I think I was going to talk about Sprig because I was talking about like my beginning entrance into Amphibia. I think I was going to talk about how on my first view around, I was like kind of indifferent towards Sprig, where as a character, I thought he was like cool, but I never really thought that much of him. Like after the hopping mall or whatever, the one where they Sprig talks about his parents, you know, and comforts him about the whole thing. Like that obviously like really brought up Sprig for me. But like I never was like extremely attached to Sprig. And even like when I saw Sprig fall in true colors, I was like, okay, I'm sad, but like I wasn't like crying where I did in like the hardest thing. And honestly, after I watched up to season 3A's finale with like the Froggy Little Christmas, I was still like sort of indifferent. I guess I shouldn't say indifferent towards Sprig. I liked him, but like if I put him on like a character tier list, I probably would have put him at like a B. But now I would put him like an S or like maybe like an A+. I don't know. I grew so attached to Sprig. Literally like in the last, I think, month. When I was talking about like back when I did my Darcy video, I think around a month ago, that was probably when I started like noticing Sprig for what he really was, and like how his bond with Anne is literally like the core of the show. The core, haha, funny. But I started growing so much more attached to Sprig, like just in this last month, and I loved that I did, because I almost feel like if I watched The Hardest Thing like a month ago or something, that I might not have cried or felt like that emotional impact, because like the scene where it goes from Hop Pop to Sprig and he's like holding his hat and he's like curling it up and they have like a hug. Like the first time I watched that, I literally could barely even see. I didn't even catch the fact that Anne gave her phone to Sprig the first time around because I was crying too hard and I couldn't see through my tears. I literally could not. Like the only reason I found out that Sprig had her phone was and like in the little time skip when he had her phone and he was like drawing about the Moss Man or whatever. That was like, oh, I guess Anne gave Sprig his phone. I didn't see that. But then on my second rewatch, I saw it. But like I was crying so hard the first time. And then on my second time, I cried really hard. Every time I've seen The Hardest Thing, I've cried. I have. And even in different spots, I cried. On my second time, I cried when Anne took on the gems and she was saying bye to her friends and like set them back down. I cried then. I cried when Anne disappeared, especially when I got to watch The Hardest Thing without commercials. When Anne died, I started crying. But I don't think I got to the first time around because I had like Beverly Hills Chihuahua immediately right after that. So it's just like, here's this sad, super sad emotional moment, and then you get like a funny Beverly Hills Chihuahua commercial. It's like, shut up, I don't care. But I don't know, like that. Nothing competes with the goodbye Sprig, and like, you know, where they have like the spreading is the world conversation, and then they get like another. It's like there's two moments where it's like Sprig needed one more hug before she left, and the fact that like their last hug has no words, and even now I can feel. You ever get that feeling where like you know tears are coming? I feel that right now, where I have to like, now that I'm talking about my tears coming up, my brain has stopped thinking about this Anne and Sprig moment, so it's like they started going down again. But literally the second I was talking about that like final hug in Anne and Sprig, I felt like the tears sort of coming up. I don't even know how to describe it, but I almost felt it. I knew I'm not at the point where I'm gonna cry in this video, but I'm sure if I talked a lot more about that final scene again, I would. It still gets me every time. And that's so weird. I was like, I watched it the first time and I was like, I won't cry again. I remember while I was doing my hardest thing video, I was so surprised that I cried. I was like, why am I crying? I need to stop. I need to freaking talk. And I was just like, I've never experienced, like I mentioned, I've never experienced this before, where I've had like emotional moments in video games a lot when I did like Let's Plays, but only one time did I cry, and it was like one tear. I won't say when it was. Or I guess I can. It was in my Blue Lions playthrough of Fire Emblem Three Houses. No, Golden Deer. It was in my Golden Deer, surprisingly, of Fire Emblem Three Houses. And it was one scene. That's the only time I've ever cried on my YouTube channel. And I don't even think you could tell in the video. But like, I was bawling my eyes out, dude. In this one. I was bawling my eyes out. And I couldn't stop. I literally couldn't say it. Like, there's that point in that video, like near like the Sprig and Anne goodbye, that I was trying so hard to say, and every time I tried, I just cried. And it's just like, how? Because I feel myself as like not. I've always thought myself like I'm sort of an emotional person, but like not like super hardcore. Where like if something emotional happens, I'll be emotional about it. But if it's not like, you know, if it's like a forced emotion, I don't know. It has to just be like a really, really solid or like well done. But like, I've never experienced that much like emotion into at least a media property, I guess. Or that's so much, at least overwhelming just sadness or just bittersweetness. I don't know. Amphibia's ending was just so perfect. It was just so good. And like that scene has made me cry without fail every time I've seen it. And it's like, I feel like if I were to like sit down and watch it, like again, I'd probably cry the first time. And if I like watch it again, I'd maybe cry the second time. But if I keep replaying it, I might not cry. I don't know. It's just like, I've never had to mentally tell myself, don't cry, don't cry, don't cry, stop crying. Where usually it's just like, okay, I'm not crying. It's like, whatever. But I literally was like forcing myself, do not cry, because you have to get this video out. And it was hard because I just couldn't stop. I actually cut out a lot of the crying too. I cried maybe like for a couple minutes, I think, in the video, and like near the ending as well. I cut out like 2 minutes of me crying, and it was like really ugly crying too. And I didn't want to just like put minutes of me crying on end, so I cut out a decent amount of it. But like, just so you know, there's like two more minutes of lost media of just me crying. It's pretty pathetic. I'm gonna hold on to that audio file just for my own purposes, just so I know exactly how I felt, no matter what. I still know how, but I just mean like, you know, a month from now, a year from now, a decade from now, I can come back to that and know exactly how I felt. And then I can be like, that's how I want other people to feel from something that I have created. Which is sad because I just feel like I could never do that. Where I can never create something like Amphibia, where I think about every last little thing. And obviously, again, Amphibia is made by a team of persons. It's not just like a single person. But it just makes me wonder so much, like, is that possible for somebody like me? But it's the fact that Amphibia brings those questions out of me in the first place. Really makes me think. And I just feel so inspired to just do something. Do something. And I have all this inspiration and energy, and I feel so confused about where to put it right now. And I think that's the main reason where I'm just kind of making this video, because I'm just sort of putting off this energy into this video, because I don't know where to put it yet. I don't know. But I have a lot of it, like more than I ever have in like the past couple years. And I've been pretty inspired. Like usually my inspiration is like just goes up and down and up and down, but now it's like at an all-time high. like where I just like I feel like I could not say do anything, but I feel like if I were to put my mind to anything and just work really hard at it, that I could maybe. I don't know. Amphibia really makes me feel this way, and it's crazy how it does. It's given me like confidence, maybe not confidence, but like inspiration. Just a massive amount of it. For myself. And again, I'm obviously still just like thinking all this much about the episode itself and how much I love the series. But it's just like at a personal level, I just feel that it has changed me so much. So I think I'm gonna end it there. Yeah, I could go on for a lot longer, but it's just so good. It is. I know I've said it's so good, just quotes, it's so good so many times, but I just don't have words. Or at least I can't just say like a phrase or a quote that just sums it all up, besides like Anne's final message or whatever. It just, even like a spin-off. They've sort of hinted or teased spin-offs where I think in Matt Brawley's final message, there's like a little audio file where he thanks everybody for watching and stuff like that, and how like, oh, you'll always be welcome in Wartwood. It's super sweet. But in that, he even says like, I don't know if this is the last time we'll ever see Amphibia, which is like basically like, oh, we might get a spin-off of the world of Amphibia someday. And it's like, I immediately was like, oh, you know what would be an awesome spin-off? Post time skip and Marcy and Sasha going on adventures or something. And I was like, no, that can't happen. You can't do that. Because if you do, the show isn't open-ended anymore. You can't do that. I think if we were ever to have a spin-off, it would have to be with Sprig in the new continent or something like, or like Mrs. Croaker spin-off, that'd be funny. Or like Polly doing something. It'd have to take place in Amphibia, surely. Because the girls are on Earth. What are you going to do with them? You know, their stories are over. Like, I hate to say, well, I guess they're over, but they're also just beginning, you know? Where it's so hard. I know I said I was going to be done talking, but like, the fate of the Calamity trio is so perfect. Where I said earlier, it's like you wanted to see them hang out more, but like, it's perfect how it is. Where it's so open-ended. Where it's like you almost don't want it to be closed. You almost want like a massive amount of closure for these characters, but like the message and the show is better if it's open-ended, and like that's what is so investing about it. Where it's like you want it so bad, but the hardest thing is that you don't have it. You know, it's like that's another one of the hardest things is that it doesn't need to have it happen. The open-endedness is what makes it so special. Where if you close all their character arcs and wrap them up with a nice bow, then it's not as special, I guess. Where it's like, oh, here's exactly what happened. You know, Anne, Sasha, and Marcy, they became roommates and they did this, and it's like they went on these adventures, and this is what they're gonna do with the rest of their lives from now on. And it's just like, no. As much as you want to see like the three of them go on more adventures and have fun times, the open-endedness is like, well, maybe they'll just be like regular pals, where it's like, with me and some of my friends who like went off to college, we don't talk hardly as much, but I would still consider them my close friends. And like just a few days ago, I had one of my friends come back from college, and we went to like this park, and we talked for like 3 hours, and that was it. We just talked and had a good time, just like a one-on-one conversation. It was such a good time. And I feel like that could also be what Anne, Sasha, and Marcy do, where like, you know, they'll meet up, talk about old times, talk about what they've been up to and what they're going to do, and just have some like fun, casual chatting with each other, and then go back to their regular lives. And that's honestly probably more realistic, where instead of like, oh, they're not going to get a room together and just go on more adventures, because like that's not their careers don't align like that, you know? And I think that's just the special thing of being open, because like even that, maybe they would get a room. And like, I don't know, I feel like it's just like after you've seen them go on so many adventures together, it's like you don't want it to be over, because we haven't seen specifically those three go on too many adventures where it's been like, oh, it's been Anne and Sasha, Anne and Marcy, like a lot of Anne and Marcy in like season 2, and like only and like a lot of Anne and Sasha again near the end. It's just like you never really seen the three of them get to just like chill. Like I would love to just see an episode. Besides, I think like the only episode where they really got to chill was like Battle of the Bands. That was it. That was like the only time, and besides like flashback scenes as well. But like I would love to just like see an episode where it's just them chilling, You know, it sucks because like we got to see so many fun adventures of like Anne and the Planters, and I just really wanted to see more of that between the Calamity Trio. But I think it's special because we don't see that, because it's open-ended, and we don't get to see exactly what their lives have planned for them. And even though it's like you think about these characters and their futures, and it's a new beginning. Their lives are still beginning. Like Matt Brawley even like tweeted like, oh, their stories in Amphibia might be over, but like they're still young. They still have their whole lives ahead of them. They're just beginning. Their lives are just beginning. And I think that's so cool. I think it's so cool how it's just like left open like that. And I think like besides like the Marcy Journal that's like coming out later, there's not like any confirmed content. So like if there is a spinoff, again, I do think it'll be like Sprig, Polly, Ivy in the New World. Like that's I think they specifically mentioned that new continent, not just because like, oh, more adventures, but also for like a potential spin-off thing where you can have another new world inside Amphibia. I don't know. I just think that would be so neat as like a spin-off. But unless it's like an Easter egg or like some small little thing, you can't show the Calamity Trio. Like maybe you can show Anne for like one scene as like a joke or like a cutaway or like, I don't know, as something. Maybe Sprig is like having like a dream, maybe like a dream about Anne, or I don't know. I feel like for the most part though, if Amphibia ever does get a spinoff, you can't have the Calamity Trio in it. Like as major characters. You can have them in as like maybe they'll like show up in a dream, like I said, in Sprig, or like maybe you can have like one little scene where I don't know, I can't really think of anything off the top of my head, but like just something small. Just something very, very small where it's like a little cameo. But they can't be a major part of the show. It would have to be like Sprig, Polly, Hot Pop, like the Planters and Ivy, and it'd have to be like the Wartwood people for the most part. And like any other major characters that have already had their arcs complete, like Andreas, he wouldn't probably show up on the show too often. And if he did, it would just be, again, like a short cameo. Or like a short sort of fan service for fans of the original series. Like, I think that's how it'd have to go. I don't know. I would love an Amphibia spinoff. I think Matt did say, like, if it were to happen, he would need to take... He wants to take a break from the show, because obviously he and the team deserve it. They did such a good job with the show. And, like, if it is going to ever have a spinoff, like a year or a couple years, like, they need to take a couple year break from the show. Maybe even, like, 3 or 4. I don't know. But, like, whatever they do with Amphibia, I know I'll consume that content so fast. But above all, I think, like, it sucks because it would go against the message if you were to have the Calamity Trio have a spinoff. Because it would... I don't want to say it would... No, I guess it would. It would just ruin the ending. It would just ruin that perfect, open-ended ending. I just love that ending so much. Because, like, you think about, like, I just think, like, oh, man, I wish they would have stayed friends. Like, they didn't talk as much. Like, especially Marcy. Like, Anne and Sasha, you know, it said until... Like, they hung out for, like, still, like, regular pals. But once they got into high school, which is, like, 1 more year, because they're 13. Or I guess a little less, because, like, Anne was 13, and they're probably almost 14. I think Amphibia was, like, 7 months or something. I forget. But basically, they're almost in high school. So, like, for, like, a few months, Anne and Sasha still hung out a lot. And then they would only talk, like, occasionally. And that's it. Like, they weren't, like, completely disconnected, but they would only talk occasionally. And Sasha and Marcy, you know, they probably still chatted a little bit. I don't know. Because they say, Marcy's like, can you believe it's been 10 years? And it's like, man, they never saw each other for 10 years. Marcy didn't even get the chance to come and visit? Like, what? But, like, they've kept a little bit in touch, because Marcy knows about Anne and Sasha's job. She's like, oh, how is your job going, or whatever. And I feel like they did chat, like, occasionally, sort of like how I do with my friends, where, like, every few months you'll, like, check in with each other. But it was never, like, anything crazy. And that's so realistic and honest and real. Like, it doesn't feel fake, where it's, like, a lot of other Disney Channel shows, like, for example, Star Versus, where, like, the worlds combined, and, like, oh, Marco and Star, they can go on adventures and be together, oh ho ho. No. This is so much better, so much more real. And like, it's the sad thing, because it's like, oh, happy ever after ending in Star vs. the Forces of Evil. But no, this is like hard-hitting, real life ending for these characters. And it's like, as much as within those 10 years, they didn't talk too much. They still came together at the end. Or at least like at the end of the show. Or their new beginning. And I just love that. It's so perfect for the show. It really is. It's just like, it's just the perfect ending. Gosh. I think it's just like all the stars aligned, at least for me. Just like so many different things. The fact that like the Calamity Trio are like pretty much the exact same age that I am now. It just hits so hard. Like all the stars aligned created this perfect Amphibia finale. Specifically, if not for other people, but like specifically for me, I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that like the Calamity Trio are pretty much the exact same age that I am now. So while I was relating to them in their journeys, now when I see them grow up, it's like, oh man. I can't. I think I've talked enough, you know? I think I've talked enough. I've been recording for like 55 minutes. I only wanted to like record for like 20. But this is what this show does to me. I've tried to stop this recording like 5 times already. And I'm gonna do it now. Because I'll go on for way too longer. So thanks for watching, everybody. Again, let me know your thoughts about Amphibia. Because, oh man. It's getting me good. It's getting me good. I'll still have more Amphibia videos in the future. Covering all sorts of different things. And maybe not like a long time from now. I don't know. I do plan one day to have a massive retrospective, like the whole series, split up into 3 parts. Or it'll be like a super, super long video where I'll go like 8 hours to talk about everything. Like, I mean everything. Where I'll talk about every episode in Season 1 recap. And I'll talk about like memes, like Marky or whatever, like the origin of like memes, merchandise for the show, which there isn't that much of. Or like, and like specifically, like, I'll talk about like True Colors. I'll talk about like the True Colors fiasco. I'll talk about pretty much everything in the show, but I'll split it into 3 super long videos that'll all be like, I don't know, 5 hours long. So it'll be like 15-hour super long series respective review, and like I'll only do that for Amphibia probably. Where it's like I don't see myself doing that for like the Owl House, because like I love the Owl House, but I'm talking like this show is so important to me that I feel like I want to do it no matter what. So again, I'm ending it there. Just want to point that out there. Like that's not anything coming anytime soon. Like if anything, it'll probably come at least a half a year from now. Probably like, especially it'll have to, because we'll have the Marcy Journal coming out. I think it's in November. It's coming out of this year. So it's like a decent amount of time till the Marcy Journal comes out. So 100% that will not come out until honestly probably 2023, where I do like a massive series respective review. And like that'll also give me a lot more time to sort of gather my thoughts and gather my research. And even after that, I'm pretty sure there'll be like plenty of interviews with the cast and crew of Amphibia where we'll have even more knowledge come out about it. So it's like it's gonna be hard to do a massive retrospective of the whole series without forgetting a few things, but we'll try and cover like 99% of it. So yeah, just thought I'd announce that here, that's gonna happen. It's just gonna be a long time from now. Anyway, I need to stop right now or else I'll go on for too long. So thanks for watching once again. Bye.